You are listening to Robert Fain's podcast.
So let's dive right into this by first defining Ellul's core concept, technique. Now, usually when we hear technique or technology, we immediately think of like computers, cars, or smartphones, right? But for Ellul, technique is much, much broader. It's the absolute relentless pursuit of efficiency and power. It's a mindset, a regimen of facts that prioritizes material, procedural efficiency in literally every single field of human activity over everything else.
Here is our roadmap for the explainer today. 1. The vocation and the betrayal. 2. Truth crucified by reality. 3. Power over harmony. 4. Universalism and the political illusion. 5. Nihilism and the machine. And finally, 6. Necessity versus freedom.
Let's start with Section 1, the vocation and the betrayal.
According to Ellul's analysis, the West actually had a unique original vocation, and it was deeply rooted in the Judeo-Christian revelation of freedom, truth, and the inherent value of the individual. But here's where the betrayal happens. This spiritual heritage was basically abandoned in order to pursue the absolute dictates of necessity, power, and technique.
Moving on to Section 2, truth crucified by reality.
So, Ellul argues that the West fundamentally betrayed itself by allowing truth, which he aligns with the spiritual order of revelation and the Word, to be completely, in his words, crucified by reality. And by reality, he means the tangible, measurable order of technique and images. Essentially, spiritual certainties were totally crushed by what could simply be measured and optimized.
It's a regime of facts where the search for more perfect technical means has actually replaced the search for meaning. We became so obsessed with perfecting the technical how that we totally forgot to ask the meaningful why. The cradle of freedom literally traded its soul for pure efficiency.
Which brings us to Section 3, power over harmony.
For the last 500 years, Ellul contends that the West's genius shifted away from its true vocation of harmony and toward conquest, exploitation, and aggrandizement. And this is a key point. While claiming to value human rights, Western societies use technical and religious frameworks to actually justify colonialism, slavery, and the subjugation of the Third World. It became entirely about the drive for power.
He even points to the history of the church here. Citing thinkers like Jean Emery, Ellul argues that Christianity's success as a global power play actually proves its total subversion. By succeeding in political and scientific fields, areas Ellul says shouldn't have even interested the first Christians, the faith was twisted into just another tool for state power, entirely abandoning its origins.
Let's look at Section 4, Universalism and Political Illusion.
Ellul describes what commentators call a suicidal mentality in the West.
This is basically a total indifference to our own particular traditions of freedom. Under the guise of a, quote, generous universalism, the West actually exports pure technical efficiency worldwide. And the tragic irony? In doing so, it destroys both its own cultural specificity and the cultures of anyone it touches.
This leads directly into a global mass society. We see the creation of atomized individuals who are completely deprived of tradition, memory, and deep bonds, just caught in an endless, exhausting cycle of work and entertainment. Genuine human encounter gets devalued, and meaningful language is just reduced to empty chit-chat.
And it bleeds into our governance, too, creating the political illusion. Ellul argues our democratic institutions have largely become empty forms. They have no visible connection to the actual acts of nations anymore because those acts are now determined by technical efficiency, not moral judgment, or the actual will of the people. The result is a totalitarian man who's psychologically integrated into a mass through propaganda, all while still totally believing he's exercising democratic freedom.
Section 5, nihilism and the machine.
Have you ever felt like you're just a tiny cog in a giant bureaucratic machine? Well, Ellul points out that exact feeling as the ultimate culmination of our societal nihilism. In this betrayed society, values haven't just collapsed, they've become completely irrelevant. Action is pursued purely for the sake of action, and economic growth happens just for the sake of growth with absolutely no higher purpose. Because of this, society essentially experienced the death of God long before theologians ever announced it. Technique leaves absolutely nothing untouched. It forces the collapse of all old sociological forms, leaving us completely alone amidst blind self-perpetuating mechanisms.
And our minds are just overwhelmed by this. Propaganda serves as the most powerful factor of de-Christianization, flooding the consciousness of the masses with an ideological morass that is entirely foreign to the original gospel of freedom. It basically cements our place inside the machine.
Finally, Section 6, Necessity versus Freedom.
So we're faced with a really stark reality. According to Ellul, the West made a definitive choice: necessity over freedom. By opting to integrate humanity into a monstrous technical mechanism, we abandon the liberating word in favor of a totally inhuman universe. In this system, a person is no longer an end in themselves, they're merely a manageable means to an end.
Ellul's impartial but devastating diagnosis poses a really tragic complication for contemporary society. It's a powerful wake-up call to recognize the water we're swimming in and to observe how relying on absolute efficiency might have fundamentally rewritten our civilization's DNA.